Welcome everyone to the 2023 annual Springfield Pride Parade Community Panel. First and foremost, give it up for yourselves for being here. Clap, clap, clap. Yeah. So my name is Kenneth Kyrell. I am the official DJ for Springfield Pride. I am a host and also an Atlanta-based realtor. So again, I want to thank you all for taking time out of your day for being here, and thank you to our amazing panelists as well. Before we get started in today's conversation, I want to take the time to introduce our amazing panelists so that you all have a bit of background to know, who they are and what they're about. So if I mispronounce anyone's name, I'm sorry. Please correct me. First up, we have Cindy Brunig, who is the project director for STC's OVW Safety and Advocacy for Everyone grant. She serves as the adjunct Spanish faculty in the Humanities Department. She holds a master's in education and adult learning and brings over 15 years of experience working at the intersections of community health, adult learning, and social justice. Yeah. Next up, we have Grace Moreno, who has over 20 years of experience leading state and national not-for-profit organizations. Currently, Grace is the CEO and executive director of the Massachusetts LGBT Chamber of Commerce, a statewide nonprofit that cultivates inclusive relationships between LGBT-owned and allied-owned businesses and corporate sector that drive economic impact throughout the Commonwealth. All right, please forgive me. Xiomara?
Xiomara.
Mm-hmm. She is the Vice President and Chief of Staff for the Western Massachusetts Economic Development Council. In her role, she has focused on the industry sector and workforce development, recognizing the full activation and support of community, entrepreneurship, and tourism as integral ingredients to the success and prosperity of an economy. Next up, we have Mayrena
Guerrero.
I'm gonna mispronounce that all day. Say it again, please.
Mayrena Guerrero.
Mayrena Guerrero is a queer Afro-Latina immigrant from Dominican Republic. She is DR.
All the way.
She's a licensed mental health counselor and the founder and CEO of Colorful Resilience, LLC. Colorful Resilience is an outpatient mental health practice in West Springfield, proudly providing therapy, primarily but not exclusively for Black, Indigenous, and people of color, LGBTQIA, first generation, and immigrant folks. All right, next up we have Terrell Joyner. Terrell has successfully been able to help business owners find solutions for their financial concerns and implement strategies that allow them to grow and expand their business. Terrell launched his consulting business in January 2021. The business model of RJ Consulting is to teach business owners how to put their business hat on and run their business like a corporation. The consulting business focuses on minority-owned and women-owned businesses. And last but certainly not least, we have Shannon Austin, who is the CEO and founder of the Black Sheep Yogi. Her company offers yoga to the community and for those that may not usually have access to practice yoga that include Black, Indigenous, and people of color and the LGBTQIA+ community. Again, thank you all for being here. So I have a few questions for my panelists, and then I'm going to open up the floor for any questions that you all may have. So make mental note, write them down on your phone, and we'll get to that later on. But before we kick things off, I want to know what pride means for each of you. Let's start with Cindy.
What pride means to me. You know what? This is going to sound kind of odd. So my name is Cindy, everybody. I work here at STIC. Welcome to STIC! Yeah. And so I just have to plug STIC, of course.
I love it.
Anybody who is interested in coming here, we welcome you. We have a student pride club, so part of what pride means to me is just bringing people together to connect both on shared commonalities as well as differences, deepening our relationships to one another and really uplifting each other to meet our full potential, both individually as well as a community and as a network of interconnected people. And so that's my definition of pride for the moment, but I'm so glad y'all are here, and I'm honored to be a part of this panel today.
Thank you.
So, hi everyone, Grace Moreno. Pride is huge for me because I'm an immigrant to this country, grew up in Mexico, very strict Catholic parents who were very worried about my gayness. They thought they could pray it away. And when I came to this country, and pride was something where you could actually go and be proud of who you were, it was very reassuring. It was very solidified my own sense of self about my being a lesbian. And so, to be able to have that orgullo, to be able to have that pride, and to be able to have it openly around people, the Pride season kind of culminates that. In general, though, Pride is also a time where our allies, people like my parents who are now very close to me and very happy for me and love my wife and our kids, it's a time for them to see that this is a loving, wonderful, community, and that we're not the idea that they have in their head. So Pride for me is a time for allies to come together, to shine as my full and authentic self, to be around others who are like me, who are filled with love and kindness to each other, and then it's to educate others. So it's a very busy time of the year for our chamber, so it's hard to take it all in exactly, but I love it. So that's what Pride means to me.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Xiomara Albán DeLobato. Pride means a lot of things for me, but it is very much tied into my belief of my self-worth, my self-existence, the power of taking up space and being authentically me in every aspect of my being. And that's something that I cherish and hold very deeply, and I also work on ensuring that anyone around me also feels that same level of self-worth and all the goodness that we bring into the world. And it definitely stems from my upbringing as well as a Latina woman, first-gen American here, and my mom and dad, my family, they're from Ecuador, so born here, but grew up in a super strict South American Catholic family. And now my parents are amazing, and we have great relationship now with my wife and hopefully our soon-to-be baby that we're bringing into the world. But regardless of all of that, it is very much Pride being that self-worth, the self-value, and being able to celebrate existence in all forms that may take for us. So that's what it means to me.
Love it.
I worry for you because you're the last one and all of the good things are being taken up to this point.
No kidding, huh?
So Pride for me, it's an internal and an external thing. See, you said that your parents tried to pray it away. I tried to pray it away wicked bad. And I didn't come out until I was like in my early 30s. Because so Catholic and so shameful, and I always knew that I was queer, but I couldn't say it out loud, or I felt Dominican standards of what it's okay, right? And so for me, Pride is like coming to terms with myself, loving myself, accepting myself, embracing myself, being genuine, being my genuine self. So that's my internal process. I enjoy my Junes because I'm the gayest in June. I love it so much. And then there's the external thing. Right now, currently, like the pandemic, I moved to Punta Cana with my family. It was such a privilege. But we couldn't be out there. It's not accepted. Everybody talks about it, but it's secret. Like, keep it to yourself. It's a private thing. Over there. And so to me, Pride is like being able to walk in the street and hold a woman's hand or whatever. Just be out there and proud with all of my signals to people of my identity. Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Pride to me is empowerment. It's a safe space. It's a place where you can truly be yourself. So many of us can't be ourselves depending on what situations we are. We have to put on a mask. And Pride to me is that time of year where we can take that mask off and be free and not feel like we're at risk. A lot of us in many cases don't feel safe, and Pride is that safe zone where we can be. To me, it shouldn't just be a month, but this is the time to show the world how fabulous we are.
Yes.
I thought by going last that it was going to be a strength, and I'm finding that everyone took most of the fabulous things that I wanted to say. But I will say, as an ally, for me, pride basically means it's a celebration of love, right, between two people or multiple people. It's a safe space to be proud, to be free, which is super important, at least in my eyes. And to be supportive, and also to learn, because as an ally, I understand that I don't know everything, and I am here to learn and soak up as much as I can. So thank you for this opportunity.
Yes. Well, that was beautiful. Again, happy Pride, everyone. So let's get into this panel discussion. Okay, so mental health is something that we've all, we deal with on a daily. Some days are better than most, or some days are better than others for some of us. There have been a lot of advancements when it comes to mental health and mental support, but there's certainly room for more advancement. How do you all think that parents, allies, and family members can best support the well-being and mental health of the youth?
Okay, that's my department. Yeah, so I run Colorful Resilience. We do outpatient mental health care. That means it's the typical therapist that you see once a week, okay? And what we specialize in is working with the LGBT, BIPOC, first generation, and immigrant communities. So one thing that I see in these communities is that mental health there's a new wave. I think the younger folks like yourselves are much more aware, I believe, I've observed, of the importance of mental health, especially after the pandemic. So there's life before the pandemic, right? And there's life after the pandemic. And I think the pandemic really put us as a community in such stress that it kicked in like, whoa, actually mental health is a thing. Like, we actually have to take care of it. So one of the things that families and friends can do to support the mental health of the LGBT community is to encourage it instead of what tends to happen sometimes in the community, which is the stigma of like, well, you're not crazy, go talk to your grandfather, or like, go to the priest and you'll be fine. You can, como dicen los puertorriqueños, they say bregar. Brega, you're gonna be okay, just deal with it. So instead of minimizing it, encouraging people to seek support. Yeah.
I also like to chime in and say that, mental health is the responsibility of the community. And one of the things that I'm very lucky I'm not good at is social media. So I don't have any social media. I don't have Facebook and TikTok, whatever that is. So I don't have any of that. I do have LinkedIn, but I don't manage it. And I think that part of the current mental health responsibility that's on young people is for you to be able to say, you know what, that ain't even a real person. That's somebody trying to down me down. Somebody's trying to take my thunder. Let me put that someplace else, right? And I think that's hard to do. I was speaking to a friend the other day. When I was in high school, when I was in college, if somebody wanted to be a big capital B to me, they would do it in person, and not a lot of people had that courage. Yep. So there was always the one mean girl, two mean girls that would do that, and then their little entourage behind them who didn't have the guts to do it. So that was easier to manage. Nowadays, all of the faces are invisible behind the phone, and so everybody takes agency to be unkind, and it affects how we feel about ourselves. So mental health is this thing that has so many components. Some of us are dealing with stuff with our parents, and that's not changeable. Like, they have their own thing. There's community, there's the life stresses, and then you add this component of a social media that's kind of, anybody has the ability to tell you anything about you. They don't even know you, but they think they have an opinion. So it's a responsibility that's a community-wide responsibility. And I think it's important, too, to think about mental health kind of like you do about all the other things that you do in your health, right? You wash your hair, you put a special kind of thing in it, you brush your teeth. Like, going to therapy is one of those self-care things that is, I think, critical.
Love that. Thank you.
Can I add one thing? Sure. I would just say that in addition to what has already been shared, the importance of finding your people, like your literal safe people. And I know we hear about safe spaces and brave spaces, but I truly believe in order to support our own mental health, our wellness, is finding those confidants, like the people that have your back no matter what, whether that's your friend, your sibling, your parents, your teachers, whoever those people are, because it is exhausting to justify our existence every day in the spaces that we occupy, whether it's in the classroom, whether it's out in the field, whether it's in the workspace. I have the type of personality, and I swear it's from my parents, like I'm over here like, I don't know, breaking down doors, like just like calling people out immediately, but that's me specifically, and it is exhausting. So finding like the people in your village that are there, even if it's just to vent, if it's to cry, if it's to recharge, I think that's really important, like finding your crew, because without our people, it's just hard. So
important.
yeah.
Can I pick you up?
I want to provide a resource.
Listen, you're the expert.
I'm going to provide a resource because everybody says, go get a therapist, see about mental health. And you're like, okay, well, how do I do that exactly? So if you go to Color for Resilience and you go to About Us, there's a blog section. There's an article called Mental Health 101. It tells you when to get help, how to get help, resources to actually access the help right away. It explains what is a therapist, what is a clinician, what if I need medication, like 101, everything you need to know to get started on your search.
I was just going to piggyback on what Grace says in the sense of there's so many components of our health. There's your physical health, your emotional health, your financial health, which is my expertise, but your mental health is so important. Because of COVID, it has broken down those barriers and that stigma. And so for our community, I think it's important that as parents and allies, we practice what we preach and actually go to seek that therapy. And then also, again, for those of you, the younger folks, you're usually not as scared to do it, but there's some of you out there who become that, hey, everybody comes to you for advice. And so for me personally, growing up, I was that kid for a lot of people. And then I've been with my husband going on 16 years now, and we are that stable relationship for so many people, and people come to us for advice. We only sought therapy because we're going through the surrogacy process. It's emotional, it's expensive, it's discriminatory. And so it was recommended that we seek therapy, and we did it, and it's been amazing, and it's dug up more than what we originally anticipated we were actually going there for. And so it's a journey. You learn about yourself. So when you're not scared of therapy, you embrace who you are. You learn to love all components of who you are.
Yes. Go ahead. Feel free.
I was
Go ahead.
I was just going to jump in. So part of the work that I do here at STIC with the Support and Advocacy for Everyone grant is around preventing and responding to trauma-informed response to domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, and stalking, which has so much crossover with mental health and with everyone that my colleagues and fellow panelists have just spoken to. And one of the pieces that we talk about prevention, I'm sure you guys raise your hands if you talk about bystander intervention in the high schools, like see something, say something. So part of what we've heard COVID spoken to multiple times, I think part of one of the negative impacts of being locked down, being out of school, not having those human connections was that increased isolation, right? And so as we've come back to campus here on STIC, for example, we've really emphasized not just responding to something when we see an unsafe situation, someone may be may potentially experience domestic violence or dating violence, sexual assault, et cetera, but trying to be proactive. And I think that's one of that the things that overlaps with mental health, that each of us, whether we're the teachers, whether we're the parents, the family members, allies, or you all yourselves, what are those things that you can do, those small things every day to check in on each other, right? To be a smile, to be a sunshine. Here at STIC we call it #STICWeCan, and it's like, be someone's sunshine, pick each other up when we're feeling at our lowest. Those small things that we can do that add to the mental health, that help one another if we're isolated or potentially experiencing relationship violence. So really putting that in our heads that we each have that small little drop that we can add to that ocean that will ripple out. And what are those things that we can do each and every day to be that for one another?
Love it. So one of my big things about when it comes to pride, it means to me just being your authentic self. And in order to be that, I have to do things every day, such as, you know, I wake up, I meditate, I go to the gym, I turn my phone on Do Not Disturb when I'm working, just to have mental peace. I would love to hear from Shannon, you know, some of the things or practices that these youth, the youth of our community, can do to really, you know, keep them focused.
So I obviously am a yoga instructor. The name of my company is the Black Sheep Yogi. And yoga is one of those things, specifically for me, that helps me put space between myself and whatever issue it is that I'm trying to solve or kind of get through. So I do have a quick activity. So bear with me. I know I'm a bit cheesy, and, you know, just bear with me, youngins. So I want everybody to raise one hand, doesn't matter which one. I want you to think of something that's been bothering you, whether it's an issue, it's finals, or that there's 10 and a half more days left of school. Put it in your hand, right? It's in one of those creases. Now I want you to put your hand to the tip of your nose. And I want you to think, can you read without moving your hand? Can you see that problem? Can you see those creases, right? Probably not, unless you have a big nose like me. Now, what I want you to do is put some space between you and your hand, right? Can you see those creases? Can you see the problem? Yoga is the space. Meditation is the space. Mental health therapy is the space. So I think it's imperative, whether it's yoga, whether it's sports, find something that lights you up, find something that's healthy, that inspires you, and gives you an outlet. Because we all need outlets. Whether we're part of this community or other communities, outlets are so very important.
Yes, thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm gonna clap for myself. It's also important to clap for yourself.
So when I was in high school, I was on a, you know, biology pre-med track. I went to college. I decided my second semester that it was not for me. I said I do not see myself becoming a doctor anymore, and it really shattered the hearts of my family members and everyone else, but I had to put myself first. And just long story short, I graduated with a business degree, and I worked in corporate America for about 7 years. And then I decided to become a full-time entrepreneur. I put all of the things that I wanted to do to the forefront, and I said, you know what, life is short, and I'm really gonna follow my heart and do what I wanna do. So, Terrell, with your experience working with business owners to grow and expand their business, what are a few things you think that every young entrepreneur or aspiring business owner should understand as they start and scale their business?
So there's a big irony here. I actually went to Springfield College. I was a sports bio major. I was on the plan and track for med school.
Okay.
That's so cool.
I want to chime
Synergy.
in. I also was on the pre-med because every black and brown kid's parents want you to be a doctor
Right.
or a lawyer. So I actually went to 1 year of med school in Baylor when I decided that it was not for me. So funny that.
Yeah.
So much synergy up here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I volunteered at a hospital, and I realized 40 years of this, no, it's not for me, and I panicked.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What
Which is
happened.
okay.
Yeah.
It's
and
okay to
so-
pivot.
Absolutely. And so I love the restaurant field, and the restaurant was just so much fun, and there's a lot of theft in restaurants. So I was like, all right, let me learn how to run a restaurant so people are not stealing money from me. Going to business school, I got my MBA. And so I just learned so much. I was actually the youngest of my class. And so getting out, I was like, I got to make some money. And that's what led me into financial planning. And I just loved working with business owners. They're just so much fun, so complex. And then I started doing business coaching on a pro bono basis for 2 years. And then somebody just said, why are you not charging? And so a lot of what we do is focus on basics of how to run a business. You can be passionate about anything, but if you don't know how to run a business, you're going to run it into the ground. I know Grace can certainly speak to this of running a multi-million-dollar corporation, building it from scratch, but if you do not run the operations properly, you do not have the right people working with you, you're going to fail. So, number one, have that passion. Because when you're in business for yourself, nobody's at the door knocking saying, where are you at? It's 8 a.m., you're not here for your shift. You have to wake up and do that. You have to grind it out. People don't see what you do in the background. You have to stay up late at night doing work, doing reports, filing for grants, anything that you need to do to keep that business running. People don't see that. So when you hear, put that bubble around you and don't let people in and talk negative towards you, because they're going to say, you shouldn't be doing this, you can't do this, this is not for you, like, what are you doing, go get a real job. You have to be able to put up those blinders and say, absolutely not, I'm here to grind, I'm here to make my voice heard through my business. And right here, right next to me, it's wonderful. Look at Mayrena, she's amazing, and she's building a beautiful team. You know how many people would have told her, like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? Makes no sense. You have to be prepared. You have to have that tough skin. And you have to understand that sometimes you're gonna fail. But failure is not the end unless you give up. Failure is just a lesson learned to not make that same mistake and get better the next time.
Yes.
So,
Clap it up.
that's amazing. So,
Yeah, that's right. Clap for
so
yourself.
I run the Massachusetts LGBT Chamber of Commerce, and I'm actually the founding CEO. I started it. I had just sold a business for the first time in my life since I was 14. I didn't have to work because I made some money, and so I said to my wife, "I want to take some time off," and I got invited to a meeting where this group of people were coming together to build the chamber to help LGBTQ businesses. So then I was working, but I wasn't getting paid because I was volunteering to get this organization off the ground. And I have to say, I've been an entrepreneur all my life. I've done work in the nonprofit sector. The beauty of entrepreneurship, okay, is that if you find the thing you love and you do it better than anybody else, the money will come. But the best part about it is that you will wake up every day going to work, and it won't feel like work. It will feel like joy. Okay? And that is why some of my colleagues say, I get up on Monday and I'm so excited. You know, when I gave up med school was because I knew I was not going to be happy doing that work. And I'm telling you, if you're responsible for somebody's life, you better sure as hell love it, because that's a big responsibility. So as an entrepreneur, find the thing you love, focus on that thing 100%, and it could be anything. It could be, you know, I have a friend, I own a part of a massage business. This woman loves massage. She really thinks massage is gonna save all the world's problems, okay? She looks for the best massage therapist. She looks for she matches the clients just perfect. She loves that work. I'm her business partner that handles all the business stuff. The contracts, the deals, the insurance, because I love that. I love building businesses that are top-notch, perfect, sealed tight. Nothing can get you. What's going to make the big difference, okay, when you think about building wealth, I'm not talking just living good, okay? I'm not talking a job that just makes you live good. Building wealth, okay? Building wealth is going to come from an entrepreneurship opportunity. So I even say to people who have a full-time job somewhere, everybody's got to have their side gig. I have my side gig. You got, you were saying you do real estate.
Real estate, DJ, host, media personality, all
and
that.
do you love it?
I love it all.
Exactly. And the moment you don't love it, you stop doing it, because you're not going to do it well if you don't love it. So let somebody else who loves do that part. Find a thing you love, and then it doesn't feel like work. And the financial piece happens.
May I add to that?
Sure.
So I recently started my business, the Black Sheep Yogi, and I would like to thank Torian for inspiring me, because
Let's give it up, yes.
I was
The reason why we're all here.
I was going back and forth, right? So it's great to have a passion. It's great to be able to monetize that, right? But society often tells us you can't, you shouldn't, oh, it can fail. And that became my inner voice, right? So the voice inside my head was like, maybe you shouldn't. You know what? You probably won't make any money. It's kind of a dumb idea. Do it scared. Do it anxious. Do it nervous. Do it if you think no one's watching. But whatever you do what lights you up, seriously.
Do it.
And I am a poor business owner, and that's okay. But guess what? I'm rich because I bring happiness to people and movement, and that lights me up. So do it scared and do it anyway.
Love it. Thank you all.
And then rely on your resources. Like the fact that she just said she's a poor business person, I'm gonna make that line
Hey.
right over, because I'm gonna be like, no, you don't have to be a poor business person. Business is to make money, okay? You're hitting it out of the park if you're making money and providing a service, okay? If you're providing a service, you're gonna make money. And so, you know, this whole experience, this whole thing I just learned from you right now, it's like, dang, girl, we need to have like 6 of these yoga studios. Like,
Yes.
you need to be,
Increase.
right? Because it's like,
Absolutely.
it's like you should be sitting on a large pile of dough, because you're
Thank you.
bringing a service that's going to help people feel better, and people are going to pay for that. So I'm going to talk to you after.
Okay. Listen, shameless plug. I will be offering free yoga tomorrow at the Tower Square Park after the Pride block party. So come see me. I'll be there from 1 o'clock until probably 6 o'clock. So come move your body and have a good time. And I listen to good music. It's not your typical kind of fall asleep yoga music, okay? We get a little ratchet, but it's all good.
It's a vibe. So clearly we have a panel full of leaders, and when it comes to leadership, it's really about doing what you love, being good at it, and really taking that first initial step, whether you're scared or you just may not have the resources. It's just getting out there. So I want to ask Cindy, and feel free for anyone to jump in, but how can we empower our LGBTQIA plus youth to become advocates and create change within their own communities?
Well, I guess the first thing I want to say, just in terms of leadership, I feel like I have been brought up to view being a leader as someone who creates other leaders. So I feel that those of us who are working with youth, you know, like for example, here at STIC, we have our STIC Pride Club, and Amy and Eric, who run that, 2 faculty people who are amazing, you know, they are always trying to create a space for the students who are coming together to sort of define what their own vision is, define what their goals are, always providing guidance, providing support, not just kind of go in the deep end and sink or swim, but you know, throwing out some ideas, providing the classroom, providing the consistency, providing food, providing, you know, fun, music, giving resources there so the students can, you know, do something with those visions and make them real. But really allowing kind of that creativity and that spark to be supported and put into action when it comes to what our youth want to do and want to create together. So I think it is really a combination of being there, being solid, walking alongside, giving guidance and support, but also allowing for that emerging creativity and voice to come out. And so that's my 2 cents.
Thank you for that.
I would love to hear from the other panelists. Yeah.
All right. Let me introduce here. There's this concept in psychology, it's called self-actualization. So what it is you're always looking to be the best version of yourself, the best version of yourself. The B's and the V's get confused for me because of Spanish. Okay, so if you're gonna be a leader, right? You wanna self-define as a leader, you want to exercise your leadership, you want to give to others, you have to make sure that you give to yourself first, okay? You have to make sure that you are on a journey of being the best version of yourself that you can be. Are your finances on track? Do you have a plan for your life? Is your mental health in check? Is your physical health in check? Are you okay? Are you solid? That's leadership. That it will pour out of you, that strength will pour out of you, and then you will then be able to successfully give to others. There is this idea sometimes that you have to run yourself thin in order to, or not really. Let's say, there's this idea that you have to give and give and give, and people need, there's always a need. You need to give, give, give. You cannot pour water out of an empty cup. So make sure that you are full first.
So I'm really curious before I share anything. I know we have high school students here. I need a gauge of how many seniors we got in the room. Raise your hand. All right, 11th grade. All right, 10th graders. All right. 9th graders. Do we have any middle school? All right, so all high school. Awesome. So next question, because the question was, can you repeat it?
Yes, the question was, how do we empower the LGBTQIA plus youth to become advocates and create change within their own community?
So now let me ask you all, our high school students, because we all we come from, each of us have different experiences, different ages, and this current generation is one that I admire so much.
Me too. You guys are amazing.
Yes.
Amazing, because it is like, y'all are a generation that lives so authentically and unapologetically yourselves, whereas for me, I came out in college. There wasn't anyone that I knew who was queer, identified as gay throughout my upbringing, in high school, middle school, high school. And it wasn't until college where I found a community where I could explore the real me. So it was a lot of hiding and all of that. In this generation, like I said, is one, y'all are just incredible. And I think there's so much beauty that I love and I take from you. So I'm so curious and would love to hear you all as our young leaders in our future, right? What does leadership look like for you right now? And we have different ages here, so that might be different. What does that look like? As a classmate, what do you expect, when you think of leadership from each other and from yourself? Yeah.
Some people actually really need it, and I feel like that's one of the big parts of leadership.
That's
amazing.
I want to hear some more from that, 'cause that's a great question. But one of the things that I want, if you learn nothing else today from me today, right? This made a big shift in my brain. People always talk about how do we empower you, okay? Let me tell you something. You've got your own power. Nobody can empower you. You've got your own power. What people can do is break barriers so you can walk in your power. People can boost you so you can fly in your power. People can help you feel less afraid to walk in your power. But don't let anybody tell you that they are empowering you, because your power is yours, okay? And coming to grips with that power is the most amazing thing you can do for yourself, because we all have our own power in a different way. And if we all showed up with our authentic power to every space that we were in, the world would be a much different place. And I think that's part of the rhetoric, right? Part of the rhetoric that we need to get into. So as you think about power in that way, I'd love to go and get more comments from you on how do you exercise your power in the world? Anybody?
Yeah, don't be shy.
I mean, I exercise my personal power by just, it's like being able to just be myself. I am 19, graduating in a few days.
Congratulations.
I'm unapologetically non-binary. I am in a non-monogamous relationship. I try to exert my power through just being happy with who I am, with how I look, with what I feel, and being comfortable with the people around me, and being happy with them.
Nice.
At least that's
Wow.
how I exercise my power.
So I would love to chime in on that, because that is beautiful, and I love that you are exercising your power, because we are all hoping to be good role models and show from example that anything is possible. And so there's only so much you can get from us, and that next generation is going to be looking at you. And so the fact that you are exercising that power and being your authentic self, thank you for that.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
So before we open up the floor to questions that you all may have for the panelists, I would love for each of you to answer this question. Based on all the things you've experienced thus far in life and the obstacles you've overcome, what would you tell your younger self based on what you know now?
I'll hop in. I love
Let it process.
I love this question, and I've been asked this question multiple times. And it's interesting because part of me doesn't want to tell my younger self anything, and the other part is just stay strong and keep persevering. I've been through my struggles just as everybody else on this panel has been through their struggles, just as you have all been through your struggles. Our struggles make us who we are today, and I'm happy with my life today, and I still will continue with struggles moving forward, and they will only make me a better person. So I would not change anything from my past personally, because I wouldn't be here today in front of you speaking today. So I would just tell myself, stay strong and keep going.
Beautiful.
I would say I don't have any regrets. Like, I try to live life very much not in regrets, which means that I make decisions based on the best information I have in front of me right now, right? But I think one of the things that I would say to my younger self is, like, everything is not so heavy. Everything's not such a big deal. Everything is not so important. Everything is not that critical, right? Because I think, especially for those of us who feel like we have to contribute something in the world, right? And who want to not disappoint our parents and everything does not have to weigh up on your own shoulders, right? And I think I'm learning that in my old age right now. And I think there's a sense of worthiness that you have to sort of expect of yourself to really say, I do get to take care of myself first, you know, and being a parent, that's really hard because instinctively you want to take care of the kids first. But people keep telling me this same dumb thing about if you're on an airplane and they tell them the mask comes down, you want to put the mask on yourself first. And yeah, that makes sense. But I'm going to tell you right now, if a mask came down, I know instinctively I would want to strap it on my kid's face first. It's just what happens. So I think what I would say to my younger self is, yes, the world is a crazy, hard place that is real, but it's okay. Like, chill it. It's going to be all right. Everything doesn't have to be such a big deal. Write it down. Keep going to therapy. Keep talking to your friends. Let your shoulders rest a little bit. And I think, you know, yoga or something, I didn't give myself that. I used to run. I was a marathoner for a long time. And when I stopped being able to run because I got out of shape, I left that security. But I loved going on an hour-and-a-half run just to let all that stuff bounce out of you, because it really does start to crawl upon you. So take care of that. Take care of that inner peace, that relaxation, that ability to be, I'm okay, it's all going to be okay, I'm going to be all right. And I think it creates a different kind of adult, actually.
Absolutely.
So that's what I would, that's the one thing I would do differently, I think.
Okay.
For me, if I were in high school, if I'm me in my 40s, right, and I'm sitting next to high school Mayrena, I would be like, girl, you know you're in control, right? You know you can make decisions right now that are going to dictate your destiny, right? You know that, right? Oh, there's a money problem happening at home. Are you babysitting? Are you dog sitting? Like, what are you doing? Are you putting some money away? Oh, there's a lot of stress in the house. Oh, maybe you should talk to your doctor about that. Maybe they'll send you to a therapist. Maybe you want to look for a therapist. There's little things that so-and-so is, it's giving you problems, that relationship with that human who's not treating you so well. You know you can walk away, right? Like, you are in control. And that is something that I didn't learn until much later in life. It would have saved me a lot of heartache if I knew that at the time.
Great advice.
So if I could speak to my younger self, well, first of all, I have to remind myself that I'm absolutely fabulous. The second thing that I would remind myself, so I grew up in a household and my parents were pretty abusive. And I understand now as an adult, they loved me from the best place that they knew how to love themselves. And I do forgive them for that. But I would tell myself that just because you love someone does not mean that they deserve access to you, right? And this can be romantic relationships, this can be parent, child, sibling, whatever, all your relationships. Just because you love them, you can love from
Afar.
those, those rings on Saturn. Is Saturn's still a thing, right? I know they changed some of the planets up
Saturn's
since
still
I've been
there.
in school. Forgive me.
But that one's still there.
7 rings, right?
Yeah.
7. So they can be on that 7th ring. They don't need to be in your personal space and have access to you because not everyone deserves it. So,
I love that.
again, clapping for me.
So, like so many panelists alluded to or spoke to, in my story, I did go through a period of many years of estrangement from my own family, from my own parents. After I came out, after I fell in love with my partner, my wife, and so looking back at that, it was something that seemed impossible, and it was something that seemed forever. And what I would go back and say to myself, and what I would say to all of you, is that even when things feel impossible, and even when things feel forever, life is full of curveballs. Life is full of the unexpected. Sometimes the unexpected and the curveball is going to knock you out. But you are going to get up, changed, perhaps humbled, but you're going to grow. And nothing is impossible. Nothing is actually forever, except for maybe the love that we share. This is not the end of your story. If you're facing that challenge, I'd say to myself, through those challenges, this is not the end. It's just the beginning.
Yeah.
And I hate to say this, but as you're saying these words, and my 52-year-old self, I'm just like, man, that stuff is just true over and over and over again. Like, just when you think, and I think that's the other thing as being an adult, you think, wait a minute, I lined my life up just to be just right. Like, this, why is stuff like getting offline? I did all the things, but you're right. You gotta know that no matter what curveball of life hits you, you're gonna catch that ball and throw it right back, and you're gonna do it right, and you have to believe that. It's hard. It's hard when you're kids, hard when you're 52. I'm sure it's hard when you're 75. I'm sure it's hard to the end, but you've got to keep that mantra somewhere nearby.
For me, I would so I consider myself, and I think people also probably classify me as a disruptor in a lot of things.
Yes, disruptor.
I disrupt a lot, and I'm a millennial disruptor. And I take a lot of pride in that, like literally being able to see a system that's inequitable and where anyone is treated badly, like I am there calling it out, calling it in, and making changes. And I consider myself, recently was asked a question on like, what's your superpower on another panel? And I believe one of my biggest superpowers is being able to convince and influence the outcome of a situation towards like a positive result. And so with that being said, I would tell my younger self to not be afraid to challenge authority, because I do that every single day now, and I do not care like who that person may be. So, but it's the skill of being able to connect very deeply with another human being, even if we are the polar opposite in every possible thing that we may be of, and challenging that and being able to really work with another human in that relationship to move towards whatever outcome we want. And I use the privileges I have in order to make that happen. So I would absolutely tell my younger self to not be afraid of authority when something in my gut is telling me like that's not okay, because it just has happened a lot. And I truly believe if I had done that, and this isn't a regret, but if I had done this earlier in high school, because I also consider myself and am a social activist, even as a young child, I could have changed the lives of or impacted the lives of a lot of my classmates and my friends. It would have been different for some of us. And so that's what I would have told myself. Don't be afraid of challenging authority. If something doesn't sit right, speak up, because it's kind of like that bystander mentality. Like, you see something, call it out. And I absolutely would have done that more.
Right.
So I would tell younger Xiomara, like, don't be afraid, call it out, trust your gut, and be confident in the decisions that you're making.
And being in high school is such a weird time. I remember for myself, it's one of those moments where you're really developing who you are as a person, but you still have your parents and people telling you, well, you should do this and you should do that. And I remember when I was in high school really resenting my father for a long period of time because he was living through me. You know, when he was in high school, he wasn't able to run track or be in the band and like do all these things. So I did all that. Not saying I didn't love it, but I really wasn't passionate about it. I was just doing it to please my father. And we went through a period of really not communicating and really speaking. And I remember when I was in college, I had a conversation with him, and I'm like, you know, I appreciate your support that you had for me in high school, but now that I am in college and now that you are really allowing me to fly and become myself, I have more love for you. So I say that to say, you know, you all are at a pivotal point in your life, and I want you all to take into account everything that was said on this panel, but be true to who you are as a person and just follow your heart and do what you want to do in life. So I think that concludes this panel. I would love to open up the floor to any questions that you all may have or any closing remarks from the panelists themselves.
What will you do to help bettering the accessibility of safe spaces and therapists to queer youth?
Yeah, can you say it again, please?
What will you do to help bettering the accessibility of safe spaces and therapists to queer youth?
What would we do to better the accessibility to safe spaces?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, for me, I can say that that's why I created Color for Resilience, okay? I was in private practice, working from my computer at home, and I was seeing one client at a time. And then George Floyd was murdered, and my phone couldn't stop ringing. Mm-hmm. And then I realized that the clients that I had were gravitating towards me because of my identities, right? I identify as a Black woman and a Latino woman, Afro-Latina actually. I identify as a queer person. I am an immigrant. So the same people that have the same identifiers will gravitate towards me. And I'm like, okay, where's the rest of us? Like, we need to pull together, and we need to make sure that this community gets their needs taken care of. So if you walk into Colorful Resilience, you will find that the walls are white, but there's so much rainbow color. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And there is this idea of inclusion. You step into the door, and immediately you know that you belong there. So I think all of us in our own ways are creating safe spaces for folks, but that's certainly how we're doing it at Color for Resilience.
For me, that would be, it's more in the workspace. So I manage and lead our organization. And from a manager perspective, right, in my career, it is a priority to make sure that any new person that joins the team or even interacts with my team feels valued and seen and heard and celebrated all the time. And that takes like super intentional, like uncomfortable conversations, trainings, like all these different activities to help people at my company just learn and grow. So from that perspective, I make sure that any space that I work in, that I represent, I bring that same thing, whether it's on the plate, anything that I do for volunteer work, if I'm, doing work with youth, if I'm doing stuff at my actual company, with our staff. It's so critical to create a culture of inclusion, and I don't tolerate anything other than that, right? So, and that's more like in the workspace, because I know some of y'all probably, have, you work or you will be entering the workplace in the future, and that's something that I believe is also really important. Like that space where we are all the time, like it makes a difference when you have leaders running organizations that make intentional effort to make me feel seen and create a culture of inclusion like that.
Could I just
So
ask
one
a
of-
quick, I'm sorry. I wanted to ask a follow-up to that I think might be helpful or relevant to the students here, because a lot of us may find ourselves at some point in our lives, maybe not in a leadership role, but part of an organization that doesn't create that inclusion. And so I wonder what advice you'd have for them, either in school or in their jobs, about how they can do that work to start fostering that inclusion, even if they're not in charge.
So I want to speak to that. One of the things the Chamber learned when we started is that the corporate sector had a lot of questions about what it meant to be inclusive, right? And they didn't do, I thought, wow, what's going on? You know, the new chapter in the Bible come up where it says to be good to LGBTQ people or something, and I've missed it. And it wasn't out of the goodness of their hearts. It was about they were losing talent because people were learning that other places were more inclusive, and they were going to those places and not picking their offices, right? So when I went to raise money to start our chamber, they were like, yeah, here's a check. But what's this thing with the pronouns? And what's this thing with the bathrooms? And what, isn't queer a bad word? You know, and so I realized, oh man, the corporate sector wants to learn what it means to be inclusive. And at that moment I was like, they're just trying to get their bottom line right. And I was like, I don't give a shit why they're doing it. I'm gonna make sure that it's inclusive so that people feel safe. So the world is shifting, and it's shifting because the demand of your generation, right? Because people that are in college and down to high school right now are like, listen, you're gonna pay me $70,000 a year, but you have a racist, homophobic work environment. And you're gonna pay me 50, but I could be my full self. I'm gonna go work with you. So no longer are you demanding just the dollars. You're demanding a place that's inclusive and sees you as you are. So you're actually making that change by holding on to your values. In my generation, we didn't do that.
Exactly.
We did not do that. We said, okay, I'm gonna be closeted. I'm gonna take this money and I'm gonna, sit real quietly back here and play my little role and not disrupt. And as Xiomara was saying, I wish I would have told my younger self, disrupt, because you guys are saying disrupt, and the world is shifting because of you. And so that's something you should be very proud of, that you hold your values so much that the workplace is shifting. The other thing that I want to kind of push back on is it's not your job to fix a system, okay? It's your job to enter a system, but I hate and really dislike that we carry a brown tax, a gay tax, that the people who are, around race, it's white people's job to get with the program, and it's not my job to educate them. In the LGBTQ space, it's straight people's job to learn and get with the program. It's not my job to educate them. It's my job to show up completely as I am in a space, and it's their job to be ready to hold me as my whole self. And so at the Chamber, we train a lot of the corporate partners around what all these stuff means. So I think I think safe spaces are coming, and I think they're coming, and they're here because of your demands for it. So keep demanding it.
In the other thing I would add to that is, while just some practical advice on, while you're looking at jobs and you're entering spaces, do not hold back any questions during interviews. Like, literally ask, like, what services, or do you have like affinity groups, or what type of services do you have for, diverse employees that you have in your company, or what type of staff activities, like what type of trainings. Like, those questions are 100% legitimate. And I think it puts an employer on the hot seat on, like, oh, okay, this person is asking.
Check out their website, and you might say, God, I noticed that out of your 8 executives, only 1 person's of color.
Yeah.
Can you tell me what the program, what the plan is for that? And I'm going to tell you, that interviewer is going to be like, but it's going to make them go back and go, y'all, we're getting people we're losing talent because they're looking at our website, and we don't have people that look like them on here. So that's like, you have that power.
Yep.
You have that power to challenge those norms, right? we didn't have that power.
Yeah, and so to Grace's point, like hold, those values, hold onto your values, ask the questions, and do not be afraid to say no to someone, because it's just not a place that will allow you to thrive. And it's so important to be in those spaces that allow you to be your full, authentic self, to thrive, to grow in your careers, to grow in the classroom, and just don't settle for anything
And one thing I
less.
would like to add, working for corporate America for a long time, one of the things that our diversity and inclusion team would always do would go to social media. And I think your generation really understands the power of social media, how you all show up and just be your authentic selves. So use that platform to voice your opinion. Use that platform to let people know what you want. Use that platform to let people know what is missing. Because there's top executives, there's people in very high roles looking at you all every single day trying to make a difference. So be vocal.
Last thing I'll add to that is if you are someone that is motivated to create change, make it happen in a place that doesn't have it.
May I?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, before you, I just wanted to also add to that is it's great, obviously, to change the face of corporate America, but it's also great to create your own space, right? So for me, a woman who practices yoga, I am thick, I'm black. When I walk into a yoga studio, typically I am the only non-white person in there. I'm twice the size of everyone in there. But I walk in there knowing that I'm fabulous and I absolutely belong in this space, which is why it was so important for me to create the Black Sheep Yogi, right? That's what the whole being the Black Sheep is. I am often the only me in the room. So I wanted to create a space that people of all different backgrounds, all different sizes, abilities, flexibility, come and just practice, right? Because practice does not discriminate.
Amen.
So.
Yeah.
Do we have any more questions from the audience?
I just had a comment.
Okay.
I'm a teacher and I'm in your age range. When I was a kid, it wasn't something that everyone was just out and very proud, and it wasn't the case. Everybody was extremely closeted. But one of the things that I see our kids, like you're pointing out, is that they're very comfortable within themselves. I put together the group, and last minute I said, who would like to go to something that is LGBTQ related, but that also is going to allow you a voice? And they immediately signed up. I love that they can do that. But one of the things that I constantly in my class always say is that they are so caught up with what people think about them. And I always keep telling them, whatever anybody thinks about you is their issue. Absolutely. Your issue is you. That's it. Just be your authentic self. And that's why when I was hearing what you guys were saying, I said, yes, that's awesome. This is awesome. But media, the social media has that, other side of it that is not so pretty. So don't care what anybody reviews you or whether they like you or not. Just be you, because that is exactly the power that you were saying. You create that space just by being who you are. I love my kids, and when I see my kids, I say, God, I'm so happy that we have a group of kids that really are who they are unapologetically. I know that when I was, we had a GSA group, and I remember when all of a sudden, right before the pandemic, it was dwindling down, and I said, guys, talk to me. So what's going on? Why do you think people are not coming so much? Oh, mister, I don't know that we need it anymore. And I said, wow, part of me was like, hurt, and then the other part of me was like, yes. But it is something that's needed. And so we've talked about it. They asked me to reactivate it, so it's being reactivated. But the whole idea of Springfield having a pride parade was something that for me was like, I was super happy, because normally I would take about 50 kids to Northampton. That's right. Yeah. And Northampton, they'd be like, yay, Springfield. And my kids used to be like, they're talking about us, right? And I'm like, yes, they're talking about us. And so now we can say, no, you know what? We're going to be doing Springfield's pride.
In Springfield.
In Springfield, yes, and represent ourselves. So thank you guys so much, because it creates the opportunity that they're talking about, creating that space to be their authentic self and be happy about that, you know, and be very proud.
Yes.
So first, I want to start by saying thank you guys for like being up here and talking, because it's actually really inspiring me, and I love it. Also, I want to ask, even if you guys did go through parents being homophobic, how have y'all dealt with that?
Such a good question. Such a good question. I want to go first, but I don't want to take up the space. So
I'll go first. So I mentioned how I grew up in strict South American Catholic family. I literally, when I came out, there's more to the story. It was double whammy. My sister was pregnant. I'm like, oh, I'm gay. Let's like hit my parents at the same time type of situation.
That's a really good strategy.
It was like, it literally worked. Like both parent was like, I don't know who to be more mad at. But one of my, this was my strategy for me, because I was like the only one in my friend group in high school, even in my whole high school. In college, it was still a small group of us, and when I went to college, I was only 1 out of 900 students of color at a 20,000 person school. So I went to predominantly white institution that, you know, also, yeah, so all of that, all those things. So I immersed myself in a lot of education for myself, because I needed to learn what it even meant to be a queer person. Like, and I don't know if that makes sense to other people, but for me, I was like, I don't even know. Like, I know that I'm a lesbian, I know that I'm gay, I know I'm different, but I just don't even know about like our community. So I did a lot of learning, and I became a student coordinator and did a lot of trainings. I trained faculty, like professors, student athletes. There's a lot of homophobia in athletics. There's a lot of homophobia in the Latino community in general, and I used that knowledge to educate my parents. And I would like send them, like my parents are Spanish speaking, so I would like send them like articles in Spanish and all this. So I like primed them for a while, and then I came out and they were like, oh, not surprised, but I'm kind of surprised. But then later on now, you know, I've been with my wife for 10 years, and it's an ongoing education with them. And my technique, specifically with my parents, my uncles, my aunt, it's like I'm an open book. Like I'm here to love you and to be loved by you, but there is a non-negotiable where if there's any disrespect or like conditional loving, like love the sinner, not the sin kind of thing, I don't tolerate it. If that's what you feel, our connection is done. Like, but that's me. Like, not everyone has, I think, the privilege of, you know, I recognize that not everyone has the privilege of having some of those dynamics. I don't tolerate that. But I have created this space where I allow my parents to ask questions, you know, and we learn together. And it has been a beautiful journey, and we are now in, like, my wife is, she's about to give birth in like 8 weeks, which is wild. But even when we started this baby journey like 4 years ago, my mom and dad were saying like really homophobic things. And I'm like, all right, if this is where you're at, we're done right now. I'm inviting you in. I want you to be part of my life. I want you to be part of this journey. And I'm here to educate, to answer questions, and help you with that. But you have to be like in it with me unconditionally. And it's been like really, and it's deep conversations like that that I've been able to have with my parents. Yeah.
Here's what I would say that is really, really hard to hear. I became a better daughter when I became a mother. Okay, because then it was like, oh my God, this is some crazy love, and this is some crazy madness, and like you're responsible as human. But one of the things and I've done a lot of work around poverty and you know, access and stuff like that. Parents love their children.
That's right.
Okay, it is an innate thing that comes to you. There are some parents that are very mentally unhealthy and aren't good to their children. There's a lot of stuff there, but essentially, parents love their children. I realized that my parents didn't know, they only had the TV version of what a lesbian was, right? So they were really worried about me. They thought I was gonna shave my head and, you know, who knows, all of these things, and I was gonna get caught up in all the, you know, whatever their vision was, they were worried for me because they love me, right? Now that I'm a parent, my kids do things that worry me, right? Like, I have a kid who wants to be a supermodel. And I'm like, baby girl, come on now. There's a million things you can do. But I would be a hypocrite not to support her because that's what she really, 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 really wants to do, right? And so she's going to have to learn the hard way, whatever that path is, or she might surprise me, right? She might surprise the world. You have to know that your parents essentially love you, that they don't know what they don't know. That does not, and I love that statement, just because you love somebody, you don't have to give them access to you. Like, that's really, like, the most beautiful thing I've learned all year, right? You have to know that you cannot sacrifice yourself for anybody. I did for many years. I pretended not to be gay to keep my parents happy, okay? And it was killing me, literally killing me, right? So I had to make a choice for me. What I have learned now is that my parents are like the biggest P flag carrying parents in the world, because now they notice that gay people are just regular people. We go to bed at 9:30, we mow our lawn on Saturday mornings, we eat dinner at 6:30. You know, like, we are just like everybody else, right?
As a straight person, I don't do any of those things.
Well, but, like, you know, like,
just throwing that out
just
there.
we're just like everybody else, all right? And my parents now, when they come visit us, they say, and I have 4 siblings, so I'm one of 5. They say, you're our most normal child, right? Because my wife and I have a very, like, you know, we have dinner at 6 and we put the kids on 9:30.
I love that for you.
You know?
I love it.
You know? So they're like, you guys are like there's nothing extravagant about your being gay, right? So it's an education piece, but also you have to remember that it's a curve for your parents. That doesn't mean you have to give them access to you. They should get with the program, but give them a little space to find that, and you keep being your fabulous self. Because ultimately, when you're happy, your parents will be happy.
Yep.
I think that's what parents want to see. They want to see you happy.
That's right.
What they're waiting for. Once they see you happy, that's what they're gonna support. They're gonna support you.
That's right. That's right.
Yes, and I want to speak for the random person in the audience who feels like their parent is not really in the corner, because that is also a reality that some people feel. So here's my formula. Are you guys ready? If you guys are not out yet, I hope that you're all out. But if that's not the case, when you make that decision and you have that conversation with your parents, do not judge your parents on that first reaction. Because you had all so long to come to terms with the fact that you're part of the LGBT community. They had 2 seconds.
Yeah.
So you got to establish that space, right? And let them do their thing. And let them come to you. Give them the opportunity for them to show up. Now, 2 days later, mijita, way, I actually want to talk to you about this. They might come at it in a good way. It's like, yes, you're in my corner. Or they might come at it in a not so nice way. And in that moment, you know, you gave them the opportunity to show up. You know, so now is the time to set boundaries. And the boundary is, like you were talking about the rings of Saturn. I love that. I'm going to use that. Because it's like, okay, you are in my life, but I am going to gauge where in my life I want you to be in terms of how much accessibility you have to my true self, to my sense of safety. So if I don't feel like you're in my corner, I'm going to put you many layers removed, because you are not making me feel super safe. And even though it's your parents, that is an okay thing to do, because boundaries promote safety. So that, I just wanted to put that out.
And when you
there.
put that distance, they feel it, and they find their way back to you.
Yep.
Right.
Every time.
Hopefully.
Yeah, most of the time. And again, I didn't see my parents for 4 years. And my dad finally called, and he's like, mijita, are you sick? And I'm like, no. Why don't you come home? Because my mom was the one who was telling me that if I told my dad, he would die. How many of you have moms that think your dads will die no matter what? If I get a tattoo, my dad's gonna die. Turns out, okay.
It's like, relax.
All right. So, huh?
It's like, relax, mom. Like,
Yeah. Like, anything I do, my dad's gonna die for sure, right? So I didn't tell him. I just left, and my dad, dads don't call people. their moms call you. But my dad called, and I picked up the phone. It was my dad, and he's like, Mijita, what's wrong? Are you sick? I'm like, no, Dad, I'm gay. He's like, that's it?
Yeah.
He's like, I already knew that. Come home.
Yeah.
You know? And then my mom was like, I thought he was going to die. I'm like, Mom, the man's
Honestly,
not that weak.
A lot of things like we deal with when the coming out experience is internal. I remember when I first came out to my parents, it was so dramatic. I was on the way back home to New York. They were dropping me off at the airport, and I was like, Dad, can you pull over on the side of the road? I broke down crying. They're looking at me like, what is wrong? I'm like, I know you probably know, or you're assuming I don't want you to like not love me, but I'm gay. And they're like, okay, what else? Like, they said, honestly, you are our child and we want to see you happy. You know, who you love, we're going to love as well. And I think that I was dealing with that internal dissatisfaction or like not knowing how they would react for so long that when I did come out, I was like, man, I wish I did this years ago. So everything you all said on this panel, I echo, and I just want to thank you all for being here once again. And thank you all for joining us. And if you have anything else left to say, now's the time. Go ahead.
Can I pop in a closing? So I had wrote something for you guys today because just thinking about you all and just kind of thinking of a different way of doing an intro. So to kind of let you guys into my world and leave you with something. So me growing up, essentially I was biracial, and so also bisexual was how I identified. So I found myself always in the middle. Not black enough for the black kids, not white enough for the white kids, not gay enough for the gay kids, and not straight enough for the straight kids. And it's interesting, it's been a pattern throughout my life. So having grown up in a biracial household, I was the second oldest of my siblings, and I wasn't sure about my sexuality. Faggot was a common word in my home, but I truly didn't know what it meant at the time. I knew I didn't want to be one. Not truly feeling accepted. Being the darkest of my siblings, I was always treated differently when I would go out in public. Feeling alone. Elementary school, running into my mother's arms saying, I don't want to be black anymore. She didn't understand what it meant to be black in a white world. All she knew what to say was, baby, you have a beautiful complexion. I would love to have your skin tone. College, surrounded by jocks, I found myself in a sea of straight white men and women, and a few queer women. I dare not explore my sexuality for fear of being ostracized. Family dynamic. When my oldest brother moved out of the house at the age of 17, it left me in a position of being a role model for my younger brothers at the age of 11. I would rise to the challenge and do my best, but this pressure to be successful would push me further and further and create a separation between me and my brothers. The more successful I became, the more they had to step up. My mother would ask them, why don't you act like Terrell? Through it all, I wasn't being my true self. I was being what I thought I was supposed to be. Peer dynamic. I was always expected to be manly all the time. I wasn't always free to be me. Stop acting gay. Stop being, you fill in the blank. Man up. Being tough was part of me, but it wasn't all of me. Professional dynamic. Entering the financial services industry, surrounded by middle-aged white men, straight white men. Talk about being a unicorn. I was not able to truly be myself. I had to hide the fact that I was married to a man for fear that I would scare away my clients. Now that I'm in my late 30s, I have developed a mindset to take back the control. For far too long did I let others dictate who I was, how I acted, and what I said. For far too long did I allow the man to control my every move. No more. It stops here, and it stops with all of you, or starts with all of you. These people on this panel come from all walks of life and had to deal with their own hurdles, but they pushed through and they persevered against all odds. Was it easy? Absolutely not, but they did it. And they're here today to remind you that you are capable of doing anything that you put your mind to. So if you leave here today with nothing else, let the past go. Know that you are loved, and know that you deserve to be the person you were born to be.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. I think we have one final question.
So my question is, how would you guys deal with stereotypes? Because I know my cousin, when he came out, he dealt with many of them, because many people just automatically just like declared that he would be feminine, but he's more of masculine. He loves to play football. He loves sports. He's more of a gym bro, and everybody always judged him. Even his friends who were a part of the community judged him for being too masculine.
Oh my God.
It's fascinating because what I find is that people are actually more jealous than anything, and that's what it boils down to. They're jealous that he can be himself.
Right.
He can
That's
be
right.
masculine
That's
and
right.
still be with another man.
That's right.
So it's okay to understand that when people attack you, most of the time it's because they're jealous.
Yep.
The most homophobic people have a little twinkle in them.
Yep.
Amen.
That's so true.
I'd like to add too, just quickly add to that, is that, and this goes for anyone, right? You had spoken about people having opinions and then students feeling like you need to adopt that or change who you are. People that genuinely love themselves don't pick other people apart. So when someone has something to say about you, whether it's your sexuality or your outfit or your shoe, whatever, it's because they feel some type of way about themselves. So just know that that's a person who's clearly hurting, and you can always refer them to Colorful Resilience, to work on themselves, right?
Love that.
That's my thing.
Well, thank you all for joining us. Make sure you come out to the Springfield Pride Parade tomorrow and the block party. We're going to be having a good time celebrating Pride. And yeah, happy Pride, everyone. Thank you to all of our amazing
Happy
panelists as
Pride.
well.
And as you're leaving, several times it has come up about social media and building community within your own group. Please do that by following Springfield Pride Parade.
Absolutely.
Nice job, everybody.
This is not just a one-day event. This is something that you can engage with your own community and your own peer group about regularly through the Springfield Pride Parade organization and safe spaces. Thank you.